pursue a better life without insisting that it be better. Improve yourself without insisting that you be improved. Find what's enough today, and tomorrow you'll have more. Hello, my friends. Today we're going to talk about the Taoist principle of wu-wei, which means effortless action. And so I wrote this Twitter thread a couple days ago where I talked about kind of how I spent my life wanting achievements and outcomes, only to realize down the line that they are empty. I guess I'll use the example of a college degree, right? I wanted a degree to improve my life, but I realized it was a zero-sum game to the top. I was anxious and deeply unhappy, kind of feeling like I was stuck in this race, in this competition of, who can get the best grades, who can get into graduate school, who can make it to whatever star profession that this culture celebrates, right? And until I started understanding this Taoist principle of effortless action, that was when I finally started to let go of this, rat race to the top, and I actually found enjoyment in my life for the first time. So basically for years, right, I wanted to escape my own life, and I did this through wanting degrees, wanting approval, wanting validation, wanting relationships, pursuing self-improvement. Even that was a form of self-escape, because I was doing all of these things, trying to find the next hack, trying to find the next habit to kind of escape my own life, right? Because I didn't like my life and I wanted it to be better. But the very attempt of wanting it to be better was in itself an attempt to escape from myself. And I think this is a kind of a dangerous trap that you can fall into when you get into this whole self-discipline and self-improvement kind of phase. I'm not saying self-improvement is bad, right? Because it's one of the necessary journeys every man needs to go on in his life. But it kind of, you don't want it to lose yourself in it, where you are just using it as another form of escape, right? For example, you start trying to escape your life by partying and drinking all the time, but then it becomes, you try to escape your life by quote unquote like meditating, right? It becomes something you have to do in order to get your fix, right? Because it's like suffering turns into, you gain your pleasure out of suffering now. And so basically I was so busy chasing outcomes that I forgot how to enjoy my life. And we all want better lives, right? But we often get caught up in this noise of chasing, right? Outcomes, shiny toys, pretty numbers, metrics, likes, follows, whatever, dollar signs, right? We're so caught up chasing symbols for the real feeling that's internal in us that we forget that happiness is a state, and it's not a number or a thing, right? These things only symbolize the feeling. And so when we get the things we want, we're happy, right? For a moment in time, but moment quickly passes. The rush of a cigarette, the buzz of caffeine in the morning, remember your first shot of espresso? I remember I would take a shot of espresso and my head was just like, now it just feels like nothing, right? The spurt of an orgasm, or, a 4-piece fried chicken meal, which is like my favorite. But people don't realize that they're trapped in this cycle of endless suffering where, pleasure becomes pain, and it's a cycle, right? Drunkenness becomes hangovers. It's this cycle of, if you want pleasure, you're going to have pain. It goes around and around, right? And so it's very effort of chasing the negative just naturally entails, the very effort of chasing the positive entails the negative, right? Because you can't have one without the other. But then the same way, right? If you think about it from the opposite way, right? Discipline becomes reward, right? Pain becomes pleasure, and investment becomes return, right? And so the very effort of chasing the negative also entails the positive, right? So you could either positive into negative or negative into positive, right? And that's the way of things, right? This is inevitable. This is like the law of life, right? A wave, if you think about waves, it has crests and troughs. But the question becomes what kind of undulation that you want in the wave that runs your life, right? You can have a wave that surges violently, like the waves of the sea, or you can have a kind of a gentle, smooth motion, like a still pond, right? Now, I realize that, surging waves is how most people live their lives. Causes lead into effects, highs lead into lows, pleasure leads into pain, and overwork leads into burnout, right? It's this cycle of trying to go really high, and then inevitably what must follow is really low, trying to go really high again and then really low. And an example for me was in academics in school. I tried really hard, right? Climbing up, and then I burned out. I was just totally done with it for a while because I had enough of this, right? And so I used to operate under this model of this violent surging violently through life, right? I thought I had to push against nature to get what I wanted, but all that I was really doing was going against my own nature. It's like a ship in the middle of an ocean trying to push through and battle against the waves, right? And so this created massive resistance in my life. But when I discovered this art of ancient Chinese philosophy, right, the wave of this gently undulating wave like a pond, I found this sense of stillness and peace for the first time in my life. And it kind of became, instead of this negative feedback loop, it became a positive one, right? Where I found that if I worked less hours, I would enjoy my work more. And as I enjoyed my work more, that led me to produce better work. And as I produced better work, I would get better rest because my mind wasn't constantly running about, oh, you didn't do this good enough. And when I got better rest, then I worked less hours, right? And the cycle just repeats. I work less hours, I enjoy work more, I produce better work, right? This positive cycle now rather than that negative one. And so my life went from this constant external enslavement, constantly having external enslavement cause an internal reaction inside of me. It went from that into developing a sort of internal freedom that led to external action, like a guidance from the inside rather than being controlled from the outside. So I went from being always exhausted and just tired of my day to being well rested. I went from being pushed by fear into being pulled by inspiration. And it was all just a kind of shift in the way that I operated. So you have to ask yourself, right? It's like, why do you want a degree? Why do you want a promotion? Why do you want a relationship? Why do you want a lot of yada, yada, yada? Why do you want to get jacked, right? You want a better life. And that's good. But if you don't have enough today, then you won't have enough no matter how much you get, right? It's this scarcity mindset that I think we're so caught up in when we play this huge wave game, is we think we need more, because we're in such a state of lack. But then trying to climb high, the higher you go, the harder you fall, right? And so it's like lows give rise to the peaks. And so just don't try to fight it, man. Like, embrace it. You got to enjoy both so equally that there is no fundamental difference between pleasure and pain, productivity and laziness, love and hate. Like a romantic relationship, they're equal partners. And you have to respect both mutually, right? If we go back to the example about how getting more rest entails getting more work done, right? You have to develop a healthy relationship with what rest means, right? Rest doesn't mean laziness. It's your body, it's your mind telling you that there needs to be a balance. And if you don't keep it in balance, you're gonna go all the way up, and then at some point it's gonna tip, and then it's gonna equalize itself, right? But if you can keep it in balance all the time, then the wave will be steady. And instead of spiking your life like a drug addict almost, right? You need the hit of heroin, and then you crash, hit a heroin crash, right? Instead, you're able to just gently course through it without resisting anything. And so this whole analogy of the wave, right? The same principle applies to relationships, productivity, happiness, and learning new skills, right? It's like you try to learn a new skill, you try to like spend 6 hours a day on it, and it just leaves you like frustrated and then just angry, right? You ever had those experiences where it feels like you're making no progress despite putting in so much effort, right? But if you just, 15 minutes a day, rest, right? Slow and steady, right? The difference is when you're not in your head about insisting that, something needs to happen, then you actually learn it a lot faster. And I'm sure you've experienced this many times in your life, right? So you can swing violently, or you can undulate gently, but you have to respect both partners, right, in the relationship. And because together these two partners are what produce a net equilibrium, right? You can't just have the world wouldn't exist if it was like all up and no down, right? If it was all life and no death, because how can you have life, right? You can only have life in relation to your death. You can only be short in relationship to being tall. Like, you need the opposites in order for the physical world to manifest, right? And so it's like, can you pursue a better life without insisting that it be better, right? Can you improve yourself without insisting that you be improved, right? Find what's enough in today and just relax into it, right? Find what's enough today, and tomorrow you'll have more, right? And all it takes is just noticing what's in front of you right now and just moving with it, right? Flow with it rather than trying to resist it, and this constant feeling of neediness and desperation, like you're not doing enough, right? Just accept what it is, right? Accept everything you feel and just flow with it without condemning anything or trying to, force it, right? Because that's how you burn out. When you force it for extended periods of time, that's when you burn out. And so the summary really is that when I reframed my kind of metaphysical relationship to the negative, that changed how I saw the world and myself. I was no longer trying to beat the negative, right? Trying to make everything positive and no negative, because I realized negative was just as essential in the relationship as positive, right? Yin and yang, positive and negative, north and south. They're poles to each other, and they attract each other, right? And you need to embrace both because they work together and not work against it. Because if you're forcing things into the positive all the time, then that negative is going to slam back at you way harder than if you just undulate gently. And so it's in that flip of perception that lies this tremendous stillness and clarity of mind. And you just have to kind of stop resisting negativity. Stop resisting negativity. I refer to negativity as the negative pole in a pair of positive negative, right? And so that's all I have for today. If you enjoy these kind of discussions, shoot the video a like, give a subscribe. I appreciate you staying this far if you made it this far, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.